Well, hello. I am back again this week to report what is new and for Beyond Belief Sobriety, the podcast and community. So the weekly meetings are going well. We've had two of them so far. Those take place every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time, which is 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time and 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Time. And those meetings entail a speaker, which is usually a guest from a previous episode. They will speak for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then we open the room up for people to ask questions or make comments about what the speaker had to say. The meeting takes place on Zoom, and the Zoom ID is 883-3035-4802. This week, our guest is going to be Serge Prengle. He is the author of the 12 Proactive Steps. Serge is a life coach and therapist, and he is the co-founder of the Integrative Focusing Therapy online training program. He's brilliant, and he's been on two of our episodes. He was on episode 239, which was fairly recently, and then back in November of 2017, he was on episode 73. He's really interesting. He has written the 12 steps a number of times differently as a very proactive and practical way to recover or make a change in one's life. He is not a person in recovery from addiction, but he found that the 12 steps were a useful way for people to make change in their life. So he has grabbed onto those and he's adapted them to be very proactive, to help people be proactive with making change in their life. So anyway, he's going to talk about that, and I'm sure it'll be interesting. We'll open up the floor for questions. So that will be coming up this Tuesday, March 15th. Every Tuesday we'll be doing this. It starts at 7 o'clock p.m. Central, and I will open the doors to the room about 15 minutes beforehand. Then on Wednesday, every Wednesday we post a new episode. And this Wednesday, I'll be posting episode 258, which will feature a conversation with Joanna Conti. This is really interesting. Joanna's an interesting person. She's brilliant. She's an engineer. She's run companies. She has run for Congress. She's very talented, very intelligent. And she's the CEO of a company called Vista Research Group. And she is the chair of a nonprofit called Conquer Addiction. And these two entities work together. And there's a real interesting story behind how these came to be. See, her daughter was suffering from alcohol addiction very badly, and at one point was put into the hospital on a 24-hour hold. And Joanna needed to find a rehab for her daughter, and quick. So she started calling these various rehabs, and we're asking them what their success rate was. How good are these? She wanted to get the best treatment that she could for her daughter. And, none of them could tell her what their success rate was. None of them were doing any follow-up or gathering statistics in a professional way or by a third party to report and make public their outcomes. So she saw that was a problem. And she wanted to make it easier for people to find decent, effective rehab for addiction. So she and her daughter started a website called Conquer Addiction. And the idea behind the website was that they would list different rehabs and rank them, rate them based on their success rates, their outcomes, and also provide other information for consumers to let them know, is this based on the 12 steps? Is it based on, non-12 steps? Is it medically assisted? Whatever, all the different options that people have for treatment is found on that website. Anyway, enough said. Very interesting conversation. I think you're going to like it. And that's going to be coming out this Wednesday, and it's Joanna Conti from Vista Research Group. In other news, we've resumed live streaming. And today, Mary C. from Savannah, Georgia, and I live streamed. We had a few technical problems. Now, you might watch this live stream. It's up there on our channel. We had some serious technical problems in the beginning where the audio was just totally messed up. But that lasted for maybe, 5 minutes or so. I should check that out. But you can skip past that. And then after we got it straightened out, the audio was fine. And it was a lot of fun. Basically, what we did is we got to know Mary, and Mary is going to be my co-host on these live streams. And Mary shared her story of recovery. And then a conversation came out of that. There were some things that she said that I thought was interesting or I could relate to, and we had a conversation. We also have people, there were like 16 people in the live chat that were making comments while we were talking. And so we would respond to those comments. It all happens at the same time. And sometimes the comments have to do with what Mary said. Sometimes they don't. I actually had to blab for a little bit in the beginning and just go on and on about stuff because Mary got knocked offline for a little while. So I started talking about stuff just to kind of keep things going. It was kind of interesting. So anyway, it was good. It's good to be back at it. So next week, I invited a guest to join Mary and I. I have not heard back from him yet as to whether or not he can do the live stream. But if he doesn't do the live stream, he'll do an audio podcast that we'll be posting. But he's from South Africa, and he is a member of Narcotics Anonymous. And his basic story is that he has ADHD and has to take medication for it. And the NA groups in South Africa were telling him that he wasn't clean because he was using this medication. So he started a treatment center and podcast and YouTube channel for duly diagnosed people. So he's emphasizing treating people who are suffering from addiction, but also have another diagnosis, ADHD, depression, bipolar, whatever. And who doesn't have another condition? I don't know, but it's important that he found that it was important to talk about the duly diagnosed because it's not really talked about or recognized in some 12-step meetings. Some people have some weird ideas about what it really means to be clean and sober, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, hopefully he will be able to join us on the live stream so that y'all can ask him questions. But if not, I'll just have him on the podcast and he can come back later to one of the Tuesday meetings so you can ask him questions then and there. Okay. The next thing is the one-on-one meetings are going really well. So basically, if you haven't heard about that, I just post a link to my calendar wherever I can, here on the YouTube channel, on the website, beyondbeliefsobriety.com, in our Facebook group, wherever. And you can book a time to speak with me. And they're in 30-minute increments. If you need to go longer, we can. And I've had some nice chats. I've spoken with several people from different places from all over the world, England and the United States and Canada. And I have enjoyed it. So, feel free if you'd like to talk, for about anything you want, we can do that. Just look me up on my calendar, book a time. I'd love to hear from you. And we also have our Facebook group, which I announced 3 weeks ago when we had 25 people. Now we have 100 people in the group. And again, I'm not trying to get the group to be giant and big, just looking for a good quality group, a supportive group. And I think that's what we've got so far. So in that Facebook group, which you can join at facebook.com/groups/Beyond Belief Sobriety, or just go to Facebook and search for Beyond Belief Sobriety, the group, and you'll find it. And anyway, we just post information about, episodes of the podcast and stuff like that. And we either talk about those episodes or we talk about anything related to recovery that's we talk about on this podcast. But we also will post the live streams in that group. So if you wanted to comment in the live chat and be anonymous, you can do that in that group. And when you do, if you want to be anonymous, you just don't register for the StreamYard app when you're in the group. And what will happen is when you post a comment in the live chat, your name won't show up. It'll just say Facebook user or something like that. But if you access the live stream from YouTube, then your YouTube username will show up in the live chat so people will know who you are. And then finally, what I want to ask is consider supporting the podcast financially. I would appreciate it. I put a lot of time into this thing, and it's not really expensive to put on, but I never really stopped to think about the time that I spend, and that if I had a little bit more money, I could pay people to do things that I'm spending time on now. One thing in particular is editing the video and the audio. I'll spend easily 4 or 5 hours an episode just doing that. And then that doesn't even count the time that I spend preparing for the interview, doing the interview, writing the show notes. It's pretty involved. It's a lot of time. And if I had enough monthly contributions from people who listen to the podcast, I could actually pay someone to prepare the audio, prepare the show notes for me. And that way it gives me time to focus on building the community, creating additional content, preparing for interviews, reading books to prepare for interviews. That's another thing. If I'm going to interview an author, I have to read their book. That takes a day or two sometimes. So it's just a huge amount of time that goes into this. So I would appreciate it if you could consider contributing. Right now, there are about 30, I think, supporters on our Patreon page, and I get $143 a month from them. And then I have a sponsor that does an advertisement on our podcast. And I get like $100 a month from them. And then I get the occasional contribution that might come in. So that's not a whole lot, but it's enough to pay for the basics of putting on a podcast. But I would like to be able to do more. So there's a lot of listeners. So the ways that you can do this, go to patreon.com/beyondbeliefsobriety, and you can become a patron by contributing like $5 a month, $10 a month, $25 a month. And I don't really have the extra perks yet, but I'm going to have some extra perks for the patrons who support us. Right now, the only perk I do have is there's a Sunday meeting only for patrons and supporters on YouTube that have access to. So anyway, and I'll come up with some more perks for you as well. But Patreon is a great way to support the podcast. Another thing you can do is buy me a cup of coffee at, I think it's buy me, I'll put the link in there, but it's buy me a cup of coffee, buy me a coffee /Beyond Belief. And anyway, I'll put that link in there, but buy me a coffee. You can also click on the link on the Beyond Belief Sobriety website. So anyway, enough said on that. I don't mention that enough, and I really should. You know, people you aren't gonna think about, you know, helping out if I don't mention it. So if you can, I would appreciate it. If you can't, that's okay too. I love doing this, and I will do this no matter what. You know, if nobody ever gave a penny, I would still be doing this podcast because it helps me tremendously. I have grown so much and learned so much from you, and I enjoy this. I am enjoying it even more now as I'm making this effort to get to know you better. So anyway, enough said from me. Great to see you. I will talk to you again very soon. And again, this Wednesday, we got that episode with Joanna Conti coming out. And Tuesday is the 7 o'clock meeting with Serge Prengle. You don't want to miss that. Y'all take care now. Talk to you later.